evening and welcome to Girl and Soapbox. I'm Melissa Morgan and a special hello to my Trinidad and Tobago people because I know this is on YouTube so it'll be all over, so a special greeting to my TNT folks. Right, so I just want to get right into it. This channel was inspired by God, so this is not just something I'm doing because I want to do it off of a whim or fancy. So I just want you to know I am like really nervous. I was supposed to do this video like 3 years ago, and I think since then I've done about 15 videos. And each one I found unacceptable for some reason or the other, and I realized I started like bordering on being disobedient. And so here I am doing my first video. So I just want to give you an idea of what Girl and Soapbox will be about. I mean, I still have to flesh it out because you know how God do things. He'll tell you, go do this. And then he'll say, and what's next? And then he'll just leave you there until you do the first thing he told you to do. So Girl and Soapbox started with a blog actually. So I used to write articles. And then I lost the blog. That's a long story that I'll tell you all about in some subsequent podcast, in some subsequent vlog, sorry. And then from there I went on to do podcasts, and then the Lord just gave me the okay to do videos. And as I said, that was a while ago, and I've just been really nervous and trying to make everything perfect, and I realized nothing is perfect. You just have to put yourself out there and do what you're supposed to do and not wonder and be concerned about who likes you, who don't like you. You just do what you have to do. So some of the things you can expect from Girl and Soapbox, I'll mostly be talking about lifestyle, but from a biblical perspective. Actually, everything will be from a biblical perspective. So it wouldn't just me going off on a tangent about worldly things. If you see me looking down, I'm looking at my notebook so I can stay on track. I'll also be talking about current events every now and then. And so sometimes you'll see me get on my soapbox, which is where the name came from. Actually, when I first got the name, I was wondering, what am I going to name this this blog? When I first started the blog, what am I going to name this blog? And then one day I'm sitting in my office, and all of a sudden, I just heard Girl and Soapbox. And I was like, okay, that's it. Just simple like that. Easy like that. And then I started to break down the name and I realized, okay, so soapbox, which means every now and then I'll be up on my soapbox, going off on something that's happening around us and just, you know, venting on it. Not too much, but every now and then I actually have permission to do that, right? One of my main ministries, which I've known for many years, is women of all ages, but mostly young women. So on my channel, you should be able to glean a lot of wisdom, mostly things the Lord has downloaded into me to impart to you. I've learned from it. And one of the things I want you to do when you're looking at these videos, just appreciate where it's coming from as much as possible. It came from a lot of pain. And you know how things go. Whenever God put you out there, usually there's a long track record behind you of being hidden and going through a lot of difficult seasons, right? So I have been through the wilderness or the dark night of the soul, whatever you want to call it. I've been there. I've been trained by him. I'm still in training, but I have just been through the ringer in order for him to bring me to this point to give to you all what he wants you all to have, right? So I'll be talking to single women mostly, because I don't have that much wisdom for married women. He didn't give me that much wisdom for you all, but for single women of all ages, especially those of you who are 35 and over, I'll be touching on health and my upcoming topics. Between February and March, I want to touch on frustration, depression, and also there's something that the Lord showed me year before last year about the book of Esther, which just intrigued me. There's nothing new under the sun. It's just that we get different perspectives on things, or we see things in new light. And so I'll be going through the book of Esther to show you all something in terms of goal setting for your life, right? But, and also, before I go on, I'll be doing a video on purity and modesty. Now, I've done a podcast on purity and modesty, but I took it down recently, and I'll tell you why I shouldn't have done that, but I took it down. So I'll be doing a video on purity and modesty. Don't run away, it will be interesting. The scripture that the Lord gave me to speak on modesty and purity is just very different. So you'll know it's not me. Actually, none of this is me because I don't like being seen. I just prefer to be heard, right? So today, what I wanted to do, and this is based on conversations I've had with a lot of young women, and just women on the whole over the last 2 to 3 years. I could even say going back further than that, but I would say in the last 2 to 3 years. Just a quick bit of history. In the last 2 to 3 years, I've been dealing with health challenges. In 2017, at the beginning, I became ill, and I stayed ill for quite a long time. I almost lost my life. And finally, I was diagnosed in 2018 with autoimmune disorder. And actually, it was 2. And so I've been dealing with that since then. And most of 2017 and 2018, beginning of 2018, I spent a lot of time in my bed. 20 hours sometimes a day in my bed because I couldn't do much. So trust me when I say the Lord really downloaded a lot into me, because that was our intimate time. Maybe he felt that's what it took. And that's not even true, because I did my best of intimate time before that. But during this time, when I go to different places, I had all these conversations with women who are frustrated because life hasn't turned out the way they thought it would have. And the thing about it is, life isn't over. We are in process. This is a journey. But a lot of us, including myself, we sometimes get anxious about, our milestones, because we would have set goals years ago, and we know, okay, by the time we are 25, we want this. By the time we are 30, we want that. Mine was a little unusual, because I'm a bit unusual. So whereas most women's milestone for marriage would have been 25 to 27, mine wasn't 25 to 27. And that wasn't me. That was also just what was in me from God, that I knew I wouldn't be getting married in my 20s. And even 30, I just knew that wasn't going to happen for me. But what has happened has come as a surprise, because I didn't expect to still be single. And so that has been the challenging part. But when I talk to these women, a lot of you, I should say, because some of you who know me will be watching this video, you're frustrated and you're unhappy because your career hasn't worked out the way you wanted. In terms of getting married and having children, that hasn't worked out the way you wanted. And for those of you who are believers, you're beginning to get really discouraged. Now, I could talk for hours about that, because all of 2019 actually, most of the year, even though I was moving about and I was doing things, I started training for a whole new profession. I was very, very discouraged. I would come home alone and I would just be there thinking about how things turned out for me and trying to figure out how was it I had such a good plan. I worked on it. I worked hard on it, followed through on most things, and yet still it all fell apart. I just couldn't understand. And as a believer, I would talk to God and I'll pray to him, but I found at a certain point there were certain areas I just couldn't go with him, because I said, you didn't do it before, why should I talk to you about it now? All right? And then I got into comparing myself to other people, which is something I never did in the past. I would never compare myself. I would be just content, this is where I am, and God knows, and I'll just trust him for the next step. But sometimes when illness come, and in my case, due to illness, I lost my job, I lost friends, I lost most of my family, and I don't mean they died. I mean they just disappeared. They just moved away from me, and a whole lot of things happened. And so in light of that, I just really became disenchanted, and at some point a little bit depressed. And as I said, I'm going to do a video on depression. But I started to compare myself to other people, because what the enemy started doing, and I could say that now, but trust me when I say, even right there in November, I couldn't acknowledge that it was the enemy, that it was the devil just coming and talking to me for those 2 years in bed. Because I just started having thoughts about when my girlfriends and I would have conversations in our early 30s, and they were having their babies or their boyfriends or whoever, and they were saying to me, girl, just come now, we'll help you out, or whatever it is. I was in a good job, and so I knew I could afford it. And as a matter of fact, they were saying, just choose somebody and have a baby. And I didn't even need to do that, because I have a background in the field of fertility. And so if you know about the field of fertility, you know there's a whole lot you can do there, right? And so my mind started to go back to those days when my girlfriends were saying to me, just have a baby, why you need to be married. And I would say to them, I'm trusting God for this. And when I said I was trusting him, I really mean with all my heart. I believed he would come through for me by a certain age and in a certain way and all of that. And I remember one of my girlfriends saying, I'm happy for you. You're leaving that, so God will be waiting for the rest of your life. And she laughed. She went on to have 2 children, right? The others went on to have 2, some 1, and whatever it is. And I just was there very steadfast in saying, I'm not moving away from this place. I'm a believer, and so I believe God could, if it's in his word, and he's telling us how not to live, well, then he would support us when we are choosing to live the way that he said to live. You know, he would just bring everything together for us. So when I became ill, I realized my milestone birthday had passed, and that's the birthday by which I thought things would have worked out, and it didn't. Instead of working out, it's not that it just didn't work out, it's that everything fell apart, like literally fell apart, because I was watching my finances go as well, because I was going to every hospital, doctor, because I wanted to know what was wrong with me, and I wanted to get better, because one of the things too, I was in pain, like chronic pain. And you know that saying, from the crown of your head to the sole of your feet, literally from the crown of my head to the sole of my feet, I was in pain. And so I was just looking at my life and thinking, it's not just that I didn't get, my dreams didn't come true, my reality fell apart. What I was actually living fell apart. So like I said last year, I started comparing myself, because when the enemy was talking to me, I wasn't refuting anything he was saying, I wasn't using scripture. What I was saying to myself, but this is all true. My girlfriends did say God will disappoint me, and he did disappoint me. And why choose scriptures to say this is not true when it is in my mind, it was a reality. And in case anybody wants to say I didn't welcome my wilderness season, I did welcome I was in that season. And I wasn't angry at God. I understood that things happen to anyone, whether you're good or you're bad, whether you're a believer or unbeliever, things happen in life. And so I didn't wish my illness on anybody. I didn't wish my circumstances on anyone who I thought was awful. I accepted it, and I stuck very close to God, and I prayed and I worshiped. It's just that when my birthday came around in November 2017, after a year of being ill, I realized, wait a minute, Lord, I'm still here with you. And I just realized what happened. I didn't just lose my health and my job and all these other things. I didn't get the things that you had promised me and the things that I prayed for. And I guess from that point, I would say I remained a believer, but that would be strange because I was also unbelieving. Like whenever I would hear God would do something, I was just like, yeah, right. But I wouldn't just say it out. I would just think it like, yeah. And I'll say, you know what, I'll just ask you for the basic things, because that seems to be what you're willing to do, and I'm not going to go the extra mile, where I'm a person of really deep faith. So last year I started comparing myself to my friends who had made, you know, different decisions. And you know, when I would ask them about God, because they would ask me, so what you think? Because we were all believers from different denominations, but we believed in the same Jesus. And if we are going by the same Bible, it's all the same morality and the same values in the Bible. Right? So then when they would ask me what I think, I would go back, I would reference the Bible and said, well, the Lord said we shouldn't fornicate. And it's not just that he just said it to crush our fun, but there must be a reason for it. Now, I don't know the full reason for it. People have given a whole lot of explanations, but then I would say for every explanation I've heard pastors give for not fornicating, it can be refuted. So my reason for doing it is because God said not to. That's simply it. Because I saw one person give a whole long list, this would happen to you and that would happen to you. And it's not true in everybody's cases. Some people just continue to live happy and normal, nothing happened. And in other cases, people go through a lot of turmoil and just have a lot of issues in their life because of that decision. So we can't just make hard and fast rules and say, if you fornicate, this would happen. And I'll get more into that later on, but I just think the whole thing should be God said not to and God said not to. End of story, right? So I started comparing myself to my friends, and I said if I had done like them, I would have been better off. I would have at least, even though let's just say I got sick at this point in my life, at least I would have had a child. And so if, nothing else happened, if I didn't get married or whatever, at least I have my little baby. And I just started to have all these thoughts, and I looked at people who laughed at me when I spoke to them about Jesus. I remember one time I was saying to a girl, it's a business meeting, and I said, well, I just thank God for whatever it is. And she said, you hear her? You what? You thanking God for what? And I was shocked, because this was a young woman. I was like, my God, people can be that skeptical about God and be that offended if you say, you thank God for something. And so I started thinking about these people, because all these people are doing really well right now. And they have been doing really well. Most of my friends by now, they're married. So they had their kids, and then they met somebody else, whatever, and they got married, they're traveling the world, they're living really well. And I was just going through hell. From one misery to the next misery. So I started comparing my life to all of my friends and my relatives and saying, it was a lie. You could very well do whatever you want and things turn out well for you. And I started to verbalize it, because then I started to my mother. And then I started to a friend of mine who's a pastor. And I became very comfortable in saying it. And I would say, like, I believe in God, I love Jesus, but the reality is, you can do whatever you want. As a matter of fact, I think he loved the people who do whatever they want more than he loved those of us who's striving to meet his requirements, who's striving to be more like Christ. And this is what happened. And in case you're wondering, where's the encouragement? The encouragement part of this. So normally I would know when God is speaking to me when he gives me a scripture that I'm not familiar with. I've read my entire Bible, studied it, but there's some scriptures that I haven't internalized, and I don't even know what it says unless I go to the Bible. So one morning I woke up and he gave me Malachi chapter 2 verse 17 and Malachi chapter 3 13 to 18. And this was my reaction. I was like, what is that? What is in Malachi? I can't even remember what is in that book. So I'm going to read it for you now. And I believe at the end of the video just below, I'm going to put the scriptures there for you. So Malachi chapter 3 13 to 18 says, you have said terrible things about me, says the Lord. But you say, what do you mean? What have we said against you? You have said, what's the use of serving God? What have we gained by obeying his commands or trying to show the Lord of heaven's army that we are sorry for our sins? From now on, we will call the arrogant blessed. For those who do evil get rich, and those who dare God to punish them suffer no harm. Then those who feared the Lord spoke with each other, and the Lord listened to what they said. In his presence, a scroll of remembrance was written to record the names of those who feared him and always thought about the honor of his name. They will be my people, says the Lord of heaven's armies. On the day when I act in judgment, they will be my own special treasure. I will spare them as a father spares an obedient child. Then you will again see the difference between the righteous and the wicked, between those who serve God and those who do not. And I was in shock and blown away, because like I said, I didn't know Malachi chapter 3, 13 to 18. So when I read that, actually it was a bit of, like we've seen in Trinidad, your parents buff you, and that is what I got. And I was like, okay. And then he sent me to chapter 2. So I'm going to chapter 2. And chapter 2 is verse 17. And it says, you have wearied the Lord with your words. And we ask, how have we wearied him? You ask. You have wearied him by saying that all who do evil are good in the Lord's sight, and he is pleased with them. You have wearied him by asking, where is the God of justice? So, in conversations with a lot of you, I realized you were thinking along the same lines as me, because you were saying the people who are doing whatever they want, living however they want, things working out for them. And it's plain to see, we don't have to pretend. You can see things are working out. But the fact of the matter is, based on what I just read here, God is saying, he's keeping record. So even if here we don't get the desires of our hearts, basically that's what I think it's saying, because we are looking and we are saying, I'm trying to please you, Lord. when I do something wrong, you correct me. But I'm watching all these people all around me, things going good for them, right? They may have done something wrong at work, and instead of getting corrected, they get a promotion. They may have lived this way, and instead of something happening, things just get all the way better, right? So this is for all of you who feeling despondent about your life. Actually, you have to be a believer for this to make any sense to you. The fact of the matter is God is paying attention. I know sometimes we feel as though He isn't paying attention to us and we are just in this alone, but we are not. And I'm speaking to myself too. I have to constantly remind myself that God is very aware of every stage of my life and what it's supposed to look like. Even if I feel I have missed milestones and I'm late and I've been delayed and disappointed. And in most cases, sometimes we have been delayed for one reason or the other. And I will get into that. There are a lot of reasons for delay. Sometimes it's things that we did. We may not have realized that we were in disobedience to God. But we were. In other cases, we were obedient. And because we were obedient, we face opposition from the enemy. Right? So I don't want to stay too long in my first video because trust me, my podcasts are very long. Most of my podcasts are like 40 minutes and up. Right? So I don't want to take too long. But I really wanted to encourage those of you who right now you're feeling like things aren't working for you and you're saved and you're looking at your unsaved friends and everything just adding up for them. Because I have friends who spoke about and I said it to God. I said, look at you. You know, you may accuse me of pride, Lord, in certain areas of my life, but they're prideful. I had one person say to me, well, I have this child and I want a second child because I want a brother or sister for this first child. She's not married. She wasn't married at the time. She knew about God. And she said, it's her body parts. She can do what she wants with it. That's why God gave you a life. And she went on to say she wants a daughter because she have a son. And she went on to have a daughter. And I was amazed. I'm like, how could you just do your own thing and just get it the way you want? And then she went on from there and got the job she wanted and got married and just building her dream home. And everything is just working out. And I'm like, did I miss the memo somewhere? Like, and this is not just about unbelievers. We even have people in church who doing their own thing and things working out. And for those of us who try, and we're not perfect. We are not perfect by any means. But we are trying to fight the good fight of faith, do the right thing, and just all this opposition and things aren't working. But I believe 2020 is a year for those of us who have been through the wilderness to start seeing as a matter of fact, we're already in the promised land, right? And I'm going to do a video on that. We're already in the promised land, but things should start turning around from this year. But it all has to do with attitude, posture, and all of those things. I just want to give you a quote from C.S. Lewis. I love the author C.S. Lewis. He's a Christian author and philosopher. And so I think if you are really serious about your faith and learning more about Christian beliefs and from a worldview as well, C.S. Lewis is great for that. I would recommend some of his books in subsequent videos. But this is a quote from him that I came across recently. He said, "We are not necessarily doubting that God will do the best for us. We are wondering how painful the best will turn out to be." And that is the truth. We know He'll do the best for us because we ask Him to do the best. We say we want to be in His will. But then, when you've been through a few things, you start questioning, yeah, you're going to do the best, but what is it going to cost me next? How painful is it going to be? But I just want to say to you at the end of this video to remain faithful, remain prayerful. If you're a believer, there's nowhere to go. There is nothing else. And if you're paying attention to what's happening in the world right now, I think I'm at my 25-minute mark in this video by now, 30-minute mark. But if you're paying attention to what's happening in the world right now and you're seeing we have all these viruses and all these illnesses being unleashed, we were told about that in the Bible, that there will be illnesses that the doctors will be baffled by them and scrounging around for cures. We are told about all of the natural disasters, and if you look, we had two major earthquakes just day before yesterday, right? And in different parts of the world, I saw where one country had sea foam. It just came into the villages. It's just craziness. Like right now, there's just chaos all over. So there's no way you can deny what time we are living in. So even if things aren't working out for you, even though you're disappointed and you're hurting, stay very close to God, because now it's not like 1970 something where you could just walk away and things will just bounce back. I don't believe if you walk away from God now, things will bounce back. I think we are in crunch time right now. We are not in the last days anymore. I honestly believe we're in the last few seconds of time. God has time in his hand and his seconds could stretch out for the next 10 years. But we are not in any last days anymore. We're like in the last few seconds of time, and everything is just coming together for his coming and for all the things that he said would happen. So until then, stay faithful, stay prayerful. I would ask you to tune into my videos. There will be a lot more wisdom, a lot of encouragement, and just, we'll just have a lot of girl time and discussions. So thanks for staying tuned.